Hi guys, so I'm going to be going over a few things that I think that are important. This one is actually about gardening, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to kind of apply it to the human beings. So I've got my notes here. I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth from, these are old notes, so things that I kind of collectively put together over the last couple of years. Okay, so there are things that we do as human beings out of instinct, I guess. But I'm going to talk about planting a garden. Okay, so usually we plant a garden after the last freeze, early to mid-spring, and we harvest it before the first freeze. Usually before October 1st is usually when we harvest anything, unless you're a big farmer, in which case lots of farmers, they wait until the full harvest moon, which is actually in October. We know that we can manipulate the growth of plants. It's been done over and over and over. We can add different types of lighting, we can take away certain things, and that will manipulate what kind of growth we see. So we know that if we start taking away light from the plants, it will actually force them into budding out or producing. The lesser and lesser light tells us that a plant it sends a signal to the plant that says, hey, days are getting shorter, it's time to produce and get out of here. So if that's the case for a plant, just think about this. Is it also the case for a human being? Are we similar to a plant in that fashion? So what is it about harvest time or that time of year that we are always in such a rush to do? So just like plants, we know that we can, if we take scissors and we top the tops of them, it will force them to bush out. We also know that you can clone plants, you can make them hermaphroditic, you can crossbreed them, you can do all kinds of types of things to manipulate these plants to get them to grow the way that you want them to. And we also know that lighting has a lot to do with it. So UV light is the most, it's the perfect light, basically. You're going to have the most yields, the most growth, whereas you put it under a yellow light, you're going to see less growth. You're not going to see hardly anything. So, like roses or a tomato plant, and you top them and they grow outward instead of upward. What is that? Is there something about the human being that we are also that way? So, if you look at people on the map, some are, your people closer to the equator are taller versus people who are at the top of the world or closer to the North Pole. They're going to be shorter. Maybe some of them are a little wider. You think about what about a human being is primed during the same time that we are actually harvesting plants, because even though it's photosynthesis, we have eyes and our bodies are actually regulated to what our eyes see, because we have a part of us that synchronizes with the sun. We see the sun outside and it tells our body, hey, this is what time of day it is. Excuse me. So what is it about a human being that we produce naturally that is being harvested necessarily, if that makes sense? So about this time of year, leaves fall, the trees are getting ready to go dormant because it's going to freeze. We know the cold weather is going to make everything kind of dreary. The days are going to shorten. And what does that do to us as human beings? Are we being reset or reprogrammed during that time? And what is it that we have to harvest? Because just like everything else in this world, we have something to harvest. Because if plants have something, trees have something, we have deer, we have all these animals that we as human beings are harvesting them for their meat or their fur or whatever. But what is it as a human being that we have that is for harvest? If we aren't paying attention, I'm just saying. So with that being said, what does pupil dilation have to do with that? Because your pupils tell everything. Depending on what kind of lighting you're in, depending on what kind of mood you're in, depending on whether you're uncomfortable, your pupils will dilate to the correct shape and form. It lets just enough light in so you don't go blind. It's the pupil is where everything lies within the human being. So if you can manipulate a plant with light, how is it not possible that we aren't manipulating human beings with light? If we know that UV light is where the most growth is happening for plants, is that about the same for human beings? If we put, just like an infant that's got jaundice, and we put them in the neonatal care with the lights for jaundice, and that is supposed to help speed the processes up, so that the baby can go home and they'll be normal, because the liver isn't it's not either working right at capacity, or it's not fully developed, and jaundice of the skin starts to happen. We see yellowing. So what kind of light puts a human being in its prime? And what kind of light is actually manipulatable that will help a human being grow? So I did a little research on this. I'm trying to find where I put it. It's in here someplace, I'm sure. And as far as even lighting goes, we associate certain colors with certain things. So purple, we actually associate that with Easter. Orange, we associate it with Halloween. We associate pink with love. We associate it with February 14th is Valentine's Day. We associate those colors. What colors are associated with Christmas? So during what time of year is that lighting having an effect on you? And are we as a human race shedding the wrong light? Because during certain parts of the year, if we are turning on the purple light, and we really need to be putting on some other type of light to help us grow as a humankind. I know I'm kind of bouncing around in this subject, but sometimes it's really hard for me to get the wheels up here to stop long enough for me to convey a message. Okay, so if we were to put, well, I'm having a hard time finding the right notes. Okay, so if we were to put a blue light on top of America, and through this light we are going to see a type of change in human race. We are going to see what types of growth we have. We're going to see whether or not people start to shorten, if their lifespans start to shorten. We're going to see whether or not their demeanor changes. We're going to see whether or not people start to lose their jobs, or we're going to see whether or not our crops start to grow better. This all has to do with the way our eyes interpret light. So I want to touch on this one thing, because I haven't done a whole lot of research into it yet. However, with that being said, there is a jellyfish out there, and it is known to live forever. Because once it hits a fear stage, it actually starts to regress back into childhood. So like it goes back into its formation, and the reason why is its immediate response from the adrenal glands, which a jellyfish doesn't have adrenal glands. But is this possible for humankind? Is this the reason why when people get scared, they actually revert back into childhood tendencies? This is something I want to actually look into a little more before I start discussing it openly, because I don't like to convey the wrong information. But is it possible that the jellyfish has actually broadened the scope for human beings to actually reverse aging and reverse time? If we associate fear and our immediate response to the adrenal glands and norepinephrine, is it possible that that is actually the key to regressing backwards in time as human beings? I'm going to be looking into that, and stay tuned for an update.